On today's episode of The Back of the Bird, we're back after a little bit of a hiatus. A great interview with former NLL, MILL player, NLL coach Tom Ryan, known as the Dude throughout his career, one of the greatest hair styles in the history of professional lacrosse, and a really great interview as well. We thank Tom for sitting down with us. I think you're going to really enjoy this one. Lots of other good stuff as well, but let's get right into it. Episode 136 of The Back of the Bird.
Take your first ride and run, baby, run. If you want a sign, this is it. You're mad, you're magic, you're as hot as a gun. You wanna play with fire, consider this. You'll chase the thrill if it's worth the hit, 'cause you never ever wanna work for it. Take your first ride and run, baby, run. You got a spine of steel and a roar.
We're back after almost a month hiatus here that I wasn't around, but episode 136, Back of the Bird, presented by Cottage Springs. If you've got a brain, if you've got eyes, you've seen the new product launches, both of those things, pay attention. Go look at the Instagram. Go to your LCBO. Go to your Costco. This, I've heard from somebody that sampled them, this Rocket Pop bag in the box, vodka water, whatever, vodka soda, whichever one of the two it is. I don't know for sure. It's one of them. Apparently, it's the best thing to ever happen. It tastes like a freezy. Everybody's freezing it a little bit, but because there's alcohol in it, it doesn't fully freeze.
A little bit.
You got a slushy. So go give that a try. The weather's turning. Patio season's kind of opening up. But yeah, go
Thursday's supposed to be like 20 degrees.
Yeah. So it's going to be something. But we got no Paulie right now. Paulie is, he's busy. He's monitoring the kids down in Mexico on a family trip, or Dominican, wherever he is. But he was kind enough to set us up with our interview today. Before we jump into that, Donnie, let's check on you, buddy. How are we doing?
I'm good. Just had our last bye week of the year, so 3 more for us, and looking to finish strong here. Obviously, it's been what it's been for us, the Desert Dogs, this year, but hoping to finish strong and be proud of our effort here. And glad the weather's starting to warm up. A lot of college lacrosse stuff going on. A college lacrosse show every Thursday that'll be out by the time this comes out, and lots of coverage. And I think most of our listeners probably seen the videos that are going out through lacrosse culture. So just doing my thing.
Yep. I just watched your Cutting from X video. So
there you go.
Go give it a watch. That was
not a spot that either of us found ourselves in very often.
No, more of a cut to the X guy kind of guy.
That's what I said. I said that in the video. Traditionally, this is upside down.
Well, if part of it was me trying to pretend I was going to go righty and really catch someone off guard, I don't think I was going to get him. So
yeah.
But yeah, there's we've been busy here too, man. I was in some work stuff the last time we had Colton on, so I was rattled to miss that one. I would go back really far playing with him, but I ended up just listening to the episode. It sounded like a great one. So then this past week, down in the city that never sleeps, is that New York? The concrete jungle?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I was down there for 4 days for work, hosting a client, and we basically just did a bunch of fun stuff. It was a really cool trip. I love that place. It's just like Toronto on steroids, and there's just so many rich people everywhere. Right. So it was it was a lot of fun. We a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings. So I think I'm getting sick now, but that's to be expected. Yeah, a lot of team bonding. A lot of something I'm going to get into now that kind of stumbled my way into down there, and I had the most fun I think I've ever had. Piano bars.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything like it. They just play whatever. You write them recommendations. Everyone in the bar is singing it with them. It was, it was special. So
was it dueling pianos? Was it was there 2 guys or just one?
Just one, but then everyone that worked there could sing really well. So
Sick.
They'd be making drinks and singing songs. And naturally I requested some Greatest Showman songs. So they were buzzing on the Greatest Showman, which I really had a blast with. So good fun good fun with that one. At one point, actually, like you're probably too young for this, but the movie's Ghost, and I don't even know. I forget I think it's might be Demi Moore, and I forget the guy's name. I can picture him. He's from Roadhouse too. That's gonna kill me. Someone's gonna give me for that. But anyways, there's a theme song from that, and during the movie, they're doing like they're making like pottery together, but like he's a ghost, so like his
Yeah.
hands are like around her. Anyways, ended up doing that with like the CFO of the client, so that was
Nice.
an interesting time. But yeah, so team bonding was through the roof, and then came back on the weekend, and I don't know if you've watched much Shoresy,
A little bit.
but it's again, I really like it, just like slapstick, funny humor, like and very relatable to the guys that play in our league, just with the way locker rooms function.
Yeah.
But my brother is after finishing up, played in the OHL, went to Carleton, struggled with injuries at Carleton, and now has gotten himself in fantastic shape. After not playing for 10 years, he's now playing in a senior A league that's like that Shoresy league.
Nice.
For the Wentworth Griffins, and they took down the Dundas Real McCoys on Friday night in the Robertson Cup. So they won their league, and again, this is exactly like the show. Each team's got a few former NHLers on it, some former AHLers, and coast guys and stuff like that. But it's good hockey. There's, and then the intensity starts to go up a little bit. My brother's just like a little shit out there. I love it, but he still got it. But after the game, I kind of wait for it to see him. He goes, "Okay, we're going back to like the owners." The owners like owns this Griffin Financial, and he owns this restaurant in Waterdown called Shy's Place. And then behind the restaurant is a barn. And we go back to this barn and walk in. And there's just pizza and wings and techno music playing. The owner's smoking a cigar inside his barn. Everybody's drinking. It was legitimately straight out of Shoresy. And it's the whole time I was sitting there, I was like they need to find a way to do this have this during the NLL season, like something that's similar, because it's I guess they have the ALL, so you could do that, but it was so fun because it's just like you're around all these guys, and again, you don't lose the locker room part of it. So had a blast going to that, and then saw some buddies on Saturday, a little family dinner Sunday, and now we're here, man. So
Nice.
this week we got Tom Ryan on. This we talked about this. We could have gone way longer with this one.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get him back on at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, really unique guy, man. And obviously, if you're listening to this and you've seen the picture we chose, the guy played in the NLL with dreads, and I mean, big dreads, huge dreads, and
a pretty cool, like, good story about getting dreads too. That was
yeah,
cool. I should have. Yeah. I didn't even. I was too shy to show him, but I'm wearing my Grateful Dead shirt.
Why did you? Oh, he would have loved it.
I know. I didn't. It didn't feel like the right time to just rip off my clothes, but
I'm sure he would have done it.
Yeah, I should have done it.
But yeah, so I think you guys will really like this interview. Obviously, around the league, we got a lot going on. Teams are getting hot, teams are getting cold, teams are kind of staying the way they've been. The playoff picture is going to be an interesting thing to kind of see unfold here.
I was talking to sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah,
I was talking to a friend who there's a great website, nllstats.com by Graham Perot, where you can choose what you think is going to happen in every game and then see the impact on the standings. My friend found a scenario where it was a 10-way tie at 9-9. Like there are some mental scenarios.
Wow, your buddy's got a lot of time on his hands.
Well, it's not that.
Hey.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. But it's not that crazy, and especially.
Is this a scenario where it's like my buddy, but it was really just you?
No, this actually was not me, but yeah. Anyways, all I'm saying is the unified standings. Everyone keeps saying the unified standings are working. Like, I don't know if that actually is good if we get to that crazy of a scenario. But the unified standings are if the goal was to have this sort of madness at the end of the year, then yeah, hell yeah, they've worked, because And then obviously you have all these teams like Calgary and Vancouver who got better at the deadline, who are outside the playoffs, knocking off like Buffalo. So like it's like this weird, thing where the bottom rises and stuff. So anyways, there's some mental scenarios out there.
Yeah. I'm excited to see it happen. It's gonna make for some fun watching down the stretch here, and I've gonna have some time to do some watching on the weekends. Which so again, I'll be watching our NLL Plus because I know it exists now.
Dude, you know what's funny is the clip that we were talking about NLL Plus was the perpetuity clip.
Yes. Yeah.
Like our most viral clip ever.
Yeah. Yeah. That just shows how much I pay attention half the time. I'm just like, I don't even know what's going on.
That's okay. Also, speaking of things we haven't talked about in a while, we have some more Lacrosse cards to open that we never got around to last time.
Okay.
So I figured, why not today? So this is the Team USA set as a reminder.
So isn't the reminder of this is that the Team USA set has every single player from Team USA and the women's team?
Yes, but then it's got the special ones. So the special ones are what we are looking for. So the special ones are all at the end. So yeah, the full set is in here. Bunch of beauties, bunch of Back of the Bird guests. Here's my buddy. Back of the Bird guest, Jack Hanna.
Handsy.
Here's our buddy. We're not Team USA fans, you and I, but
no.
We still got some buddies.
But we can still have buddies.
Yeah. Yeah, we can still
like
have
what's
buddies.
illegal to have
Credit
buddies?
to us for having buddies in this political climate.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
so
you
here we
can't
get
do
into the special ones. 1 of 10, Danny Logan.
Logs.
Logster.
Wow.
Logie Logs. 1 of 10, John Wagner.
Wags. Yeah.
This is actually awesome. Signature autograph card. My buddy, Jack Hanna. What a treat.
Does it say how many of those there are?
Nope.
Okay. 1 of 1.
It might be. Let's keep the good times rolling. Autograph card, Joe White.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
Good player.
Autograph card. I'm not sure if you ever played with him. Mac O'Keefe.
Nope, never did. Never crossed paths.
Keefster.
Nope, he's like scoring goals though, that guy.
All right, wow.
We got another good one?
We got 2 more of these 1 of 10s. Madison Doucette, the goaltender, and Livy Rosenzweig.
Rosie.
And then we have some autograph cards.
Okay.
Taylor Marino, goaltender. Autograph card.
Rainsy.
Caroline Wakefield. Autograph card.
Wake dog.
And I should check if this is worth any real money because it might be. Ever heard of her? Charlotte North.
Oh!
Autograph card.
Your kids just got free tuition, buddy. Let's go.
Someone who knows anything about this, a.k.a. Todd Tobias, and now you're listening, please tell me if this might be worth some money.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. All right, that was good. We still got the Haudenosaunee ones too.
That was talking cards with the fellas.
That was talking cards. We haven't done that segment in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since we hit the nicknames that first time, I don't think anyone in there we can call Wrench, which is good because we've already used that nickname several times.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cards with the boys.
I love it. Do you want to do your little PO Athletics and send it over to our boy Tommy Ryan?
Yeah, so this episode is brought to you, as they all are, by PO Athletic, a new sponsor for Back of the Bird. It is skincare for athletes. You can use code BOTB10 to get 10% off on all of their products. They're launching some new products as well coming up. They're working with all sorts of big-time Olympic athletes. But they have facial cleansers. They have like wipes if you don't have access to a shower. They have deodorant. Lots of other good stuff as well. And like I said, more on the way. So PO Athletic, a great brand. Really excited to be working with them. And use code BOTB10 for 10% off.
There he is, Tom Ryan. Cool. Well, our next guest is a former NLL player and coach, known for his gritty style, his passion for the game, and some may say his crazy hairstyle at the time. A standout at Bowdoin College, he played for the Boston Blazers and the Philadelphia Wings before transitioning to coach the Wings. He remains a respected figure in the lacrosse community to this day, as he now is the head coach of the women's lacrosse team at St. Lawrence College. Welcome to Back of the Bird, Tom Ryan. How's it going?
Good, good. Just got done with practice.
Nice. Those are the day these days when the weather starts to turn a little bit is the those are the days that I miss when the sun's shining playing college. I would imagine there's some tough days for you guys outside being kind of more upstate that are a little bit cold doing their practices.
It's been a somewhat unforgiving winter for sure. We had one game postponed. One game, the team just was like, "We're not coming. It's too cold." And so, like, even we played Friday at home. You know, typical winter day, and then Saturday we got hit with a ice storm, snowstorm. But the great thing about St. Lawrence University is we have great support from the administration, and they were out there plowing the field first thing in the morning. Our associate athletic director was out there shoveling and laying down salt for us, and so we got the game in. It was cold and blustery, but I was just happy to get the game in.
We normally start with kind of an origin story, like how guys got into the game, but we got to talk about the hair. Where did the hair come from, and how long has it been since you had dreadlocks? I think that's what a lot of fans kind of remember. Where did that come from, and how long's it been?
Yeah. Well, when I grew up, I mean, my dad was a New York State police officer, and so he had a high and tight haircut, and I had pretty short hair growing up. He passed away my freshman year in college, and I kind of got into Grateful Dead music, and kind of saw the allure of kind of expressing yourself through longer hair. And so my freshman year at college at Bowdoin, we all shaved our heads, and then that was the last kind of haircut I got for over 14 years. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it took a couple years to get dreads. I mean, I guess leaving sophomore year to go home for the summer, I decided I wanted dreads, and 6 months later, I had two dreadlocks in the back. I actually went abroad that semester and was in Australia, so probably a good place to start it off. And then when I came back, they kind of started, and ultimately, I just didn't brush my hair, and so they started out as kind of probably like about the size of a finger, and then they grew together to the point where I had one in the back that was about that big. Called it the beaver tail. It was underneath, and it was about four or five that had grown together over the course of many years. And so I had those for close to 14 years. I cut them, I think, back in 2006. It got to the point where they were just so heavy that they were starting to hurt my head, and I was kind of trying to get over a concussion-related situation, and so I felt it was time for a change.
Did you like as you're kind of progressing through playing and like they're growing together, are you having to like increase the size of your helmet as
Yeah.
this goes on?
I had to go with the largest helmet made. Um, there were some times when I had to take some pads out of the helmet to fit my head on, but there was just certain styles, and it was even not every year. I had to kind of stick with the same one. Once I found one that was big enough to fit me, I stuck with it for a couple of years.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's again, I remember seeing the photos kind of growing up as a fan of the league and kind of watching it and everything, and then I think it's one of those things where you become some people's favorite player in a hurry because you're easily recognizable out there, and then it the way you played, I think it follows suit with kind of the way you looked out there too. Is just kind of so much passion for the game, running around, doing everything. But let's kind of rewind the clock a little bit, like Donnie said there, and go back to the beginning. How did you get into the game? How did you pick up a stick?
Well, growing up in upstate New York, much like in Canada, hockey is real big, and so I grew up being a hockey first kid. I guess it wasn't until fifth grade, so we had a sixth, seventh, and eighth grade program, field program. Me and a buddy asked the coach if we could play in fifth grade, and he said sure. And so it was a program that was only a couple days a week for I think as little as 5 weeks, and so it was really an introductory course. And it was something that, I enjoyed, but kind of was a secondary or tertiary sport for a number of years. And it wasn't until I got into high school, there was at least 2 times when I was close to quitting lacrosse to focus on hockey, but I guess fortunately I wasn't that good at hockey, and so the lacrosse kind of I kept it alive. And really, I had a high school coach that kind of kept me engaged even when I was kind of right on the fringe. Dave Bradman, I really owe a lot to him. I wouldn't still be in the game if it wasn't for him.
That's incredible, man. And again, I think you're preaching to the choir there to two guys that
Yeah.
that
It's a pretty common experience up here. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, the dream from being a young kid is scoring a Stanley Cup Game 7 goal, but that dream quickly dies when you realize there's some pretty good players out there. But again, I think the game of lacrosse is very thankful for the lack of skill from a lot of hockey players. That's where some of the greats have come from. But again, you kind of talked about it, but was at that time was there a lot of kids your age kind of going through lacrosse and realizing that could be a pathway to university or college to go play a sport there?
Well, I mean, I think for me and maybe even some of my classmates, I think it happened kind of later in high school. And so, I mean, I was hockey first right up until my junior spring. I tried out for like a Empire State Games was a thing back then. And I didn't make the hockey team, and I made it in lacrosse, and that was a big turning point for me. Right around that time, the Gate brothers were sophomores at Syracuse, and really a turning point in my life was going to see them play in the national semifinals against Penn, and that was when Gary Gates stuffed two over the top of the cage for his first ever air gates, and being in the stands and witnessing that was a life changing experience for me.
That's incredible. You actually were there for the first air gate.
That was the first Division I game I ever went to see. I mean, I grew up here in Canton, going to St. Lawrence Division III games, and I was a ball boy for a year or two. But that was the first big time game I ever went to see. And I remember when that happened, I was looking around at my friends, wondering, is this something that happens all the time? Like, I just had no idea, and everyone was just stunned. It was kind of like rub your eyes and try to imagine if what you think you just saw really just happened. So that was pretty, it was kind of a big moment in the sport of lacrosse, but it was kind of right around that time when lacrosse became my number one passion.
Upstate lacrosse, especially like in Cuse at West Genesee and stuff like that, was kind of famous for being like really fundamental, really kind of old school is maybe not the right term. And then obviously you're talking about the gates, but was that kind of your experience where lacrosse was a really like fundamental kind of regimented game, and then that kind of allowed you to start opening up and trying to be more creative, or were you kind of already on that path?
Well, I think it definitely opened up some possibilities of things like, West Genesee is known for the fundamental approach. I mean, I was fortunate to have a coach and high school coach in Dave Bradman that really let us kind of play and express ourselves through the game. So I think that was important to me. But just seeing those guys throw behind the back passes was very intriguing and exciting to see, and that was something that really did change the field game down here. Prior to that, it was really not something that you would ever consider even doing in a game. It was just not considered. It was considered flashy and not like fundamental, and they really did a lot to open up possibilities to more of a liberal style of play.
And then I'll ask this question just so we don't have to hear Danny mispronounce Bowdoin again. But how did you end up getting to Bowdoin?
Well, back then, I mean, there were no club programs. There was a couple camps, but I didn't really go to any, and so I wasn't recruited to a lot of schools. I think I applied to 5 schools. Two of them I didn't really want to go to, and so Bowdoin was the best school that I got into, and so I went up to visit, and I had a buddy that went there, and it kind of just was very fortuitous how it worked out. I mean, I walked into a team that was had a lot of talent, and we actually won the New England Championship in Division III my freshman year, and so very very fortunate because it wasn't something that I was not heavily recruited to go there. I actually got a letter and a call from the hockey coach, but really just kind of walked on, so to speak, and it really just worked out for me. I mean, after my freshman year, I did. I was at a camp in the summertime where I was working, and I was recruited to Ohio Wesleyan, was one of the other schools that I was recruited to, and Mike Pressler was the coach at Ohio Wesleyan, and after seeing me play, he kind of mentioned that he was headed to Duke for his first year down there and was still interested in me. And so we had a couple conversations about me transferring to Duke, and I guess fortunately that didn't pan out. I went back to Bowdoin and really had a special experience there, and I think because I left with a real passion and love of the game, I think that I still had the motivation to put towards solely towards lacrosse. I mean, I think a lot of guys that play Division One, they get a little bit burned out, and I think for me, it was something that I just had such a passion for that I was willing to make sacrifices and learn how to play box lacrosse. And I never really played a proper box game until well after college.
Did you ever lace up the skates with the Bowdoin team, or was that dream kind of gone by that time?
Yeah, so I mean, I showed up for tryouts in the fall, and Bowdoin had a really good hockey team, and the head coach said, "Okay, well, tryouts. There's going to be no hitting in tryout." And I thought to myself, well, I don't have a chance of making this team. I was really, I learned in high school to be kind of a grinder, and as a senior, I guess I was relied on to score some goals, but was more into hitting people and kind of mucking it up, and so I played JV for 1 year. The very last game that I was in, I kind of started a brawl, and that was the end of my JV hockey career.
That's awesome.
What a way to go out, though. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Is there any kind of funny stories from college that pop out to you, for whether it be during a game or off the field?
Well, I'm gonna try to think funny stories. I mean, probably nothing I can share on. So, I mean, Bowdoin was, it was a school that like really emphasized the academics, which I guess I appreciated. I mean, to me, I believe that academics and athletics can go kind of hand in hand. And while I was at Bowdoin, they really, made a priority they made a point to make sure that academics were more important than athletics. And a big reason why I'm at St. Lawrence is, we have a huge sports culture here. We've got 35 varsity sports, which is a lot for a school our size. And they really value the role that athletics plays in the overall education and experience. And they put us in a position to be successful. And so, that kind of fits more in line with my philosophies.
Did you, when you mentioned the time you spent abroad, did you get to play any lacrosse over there? I know actually a lot of guys, I think especially in your generation, who went over there and played some lacrosse. Did you get to sample the Aussie lacrosse world?
Yeah, so I brought my equipment. I was in Brisbane, which at that time didn't really have much lacrosse. It was more like in the south and out west and Perth. So, I tried to kind of hone my skills. I grabbed a shopping cart that was abandoned and would shoot on that in my yard, but that was about it. And one of the things that I do appreciate about Division III is it allows you to be a college student and have some fun. Like in the spring, it's all you do, but in the fall, you can be a college student. And me going away to Australia was really, once again, a life-changing experience where I kind of opened my mind to possibilities. And when I came back, I really had an appreciation for Bowdoin and took my lacrosse opportunities a lot more seriously than I did my sophomore year before I left.
So how did the transition into the pro game go? So was there, did you go through the draft process? Were you drafted to both the, NLL and MLL? And what do you remember about all of that?
Yeah, so I mean, when I graduated from Bowdoin, I was one of the better players in New England, college players, and so I had grown up playing like in rinks, but it was more like a field version of in rinks. So it was 5-on-5. The goals were smaller, but the goalies didn't wear pads, and so I thought I knew something about box lacrosse from having played that. I showed up to try out for the Boston Blazers, and I think I did okay, but the reality was, I was a D3 kid. They had drafted some other, more notable Division One players. I had dreadlocks, and so but first year I think it worked against me. It's like, once you're in, I think it worked for me, but it didn't help me the first year to show up. Especially having probably a conservative coach, and so I got cut the first year, and so I ended up going back to Canton that summer, and Canton's only 45 minutes from the Akwesasne Reservation, and so during the 80s, they really weren't playing lacrosse, like box lacrosse, on the Akwesasne Reservation, and there was actually a lot of like like intertribal warfare going on. There was like people were shooting each other, they were burning down houses, and some of the elders in the community realized that they needed to get lacrosse going, and they started a house league, box house league, and so they intentionally tried to place people from different factions on the different teams or on the same team, and my understanding that kind of helped to bring some peace to Akwesasne, and that really kind of reignited box lacrosse on the reservation. And so when I came back, the summer of '94 was maybe the second year that the Iroquois Lacrosse Association Senior B was up and running, and a few guys from my hometown were playing on a team. And so I jumped on that team, and that was really my introduction, indoctrination into box lacrosse. And so it was a native league with a handful of non-natives in it. And so that was, as you can imagine, a pretty interesting experience. A lot of the defensive guys use wooden sticks still. My first year, I asked the team was run by Peter Burns. Was an elder, referred to himself as the great Peter Burns. And when I told him I wanted a wooden stick, he drove around for 3 days trying to find me a wooden stick and found me this real nice, light, box stick. I don't know if it lasted a week or two. I didn't know how to properly cross-check it in those days. So I went through a lot of wooden sticks that first year. But, I think just the experience of playing in that environment and, being a white kid with dreads, I mean, you can imagine, with a bit of a target on my back. And so, got some attention, and that's kind of where it all started.
Was there a moment that you were kind of like, holy shit, this is kind of crazy there, or what? Like, do you remember first game or anything like that? Yeah.
Not necessarily the first game. I mean, I didn't read the rule book, and so it was kind of like learn the rules as you go. And somebody hit me, and I hit them back, and they blow the whistle. And it took me a couple of games to really figure out what the rules are. I got a hold of the rules, but there was a couple of moments where it was just kind of it was like being in a different world. I mean, there was one time we had a guy on my team, Phil Gray, who didn't wear a face mask. He was one of our tough guys, but he was an older guy. I mean, that league had guys like Mikey Benedict and some other pros. They brought in, like, the Akwesasne team brought in some pros from Rochester, but you'd have guys that were, I think Phil was in his 40s, and still didn't wear a helmet there. And there was one game where he got in a fight with a guy. They go to the box. It turns out that we're playing in this kind of older rink with chicken wire on the ends. There's no divider between the two penalty boxes, and so Phil's, I think it was his stepson, was running the box for the opposing team, penalty box, and so he might have said something to him, and the guy responded, and so next thing you know, they're fighting in the penalty box, and so they blow the whistle, and it spills out on the floor. Everyone goes out on the floor, and it's like, there's two refs out there, and you just see that, like, all control is just out the window. So they end up sending the one guy from the other team to the dressing room, and you just see Phil starting to slowly walk over to the dressing room. He goes out, and they're able to like stop him there. But it's like, people in the stands are ready to go. Everybody is on the floor. There was a couple of those instances where just like the whole building erupted into a brawl with like potentially even people from the stands jumping on. Like that was something, as a white kid that had never really been in a proper fist fight in his life before then, it was very eye opening.
That is something. The 40-year-old wearing no helmet in a game with wooden sticks. His stepson opens the gate and gets everybody into a fight. I mean, that's just that's textbook '90s lacrosse right there. But so after playing in that summer, did you go back to Boston, or was this when did you go to Philly?
So after that summer, I went back to Boston and made the team, and I played for 3 years in Boston. I played 2 more years in that Iroquois Lacrosse Association. In the last summer I played, I got 2 concussions in the summer. The last one being we're in the first game of the playoffs against Ganawaga, and somebody came up behind me and two-handed me in the back of the leg with a wooden stick, and I snapped, and without even looking at him, I turned around and two-handed him in the head with my stick, and so that was actually the first real fight I ever got into in my whole life, and you know, it wasn't his first fight, obviously. So that
well, except
gave
for the
me
JV, except for the hockey game at Bowdoin, that was the first one.
so so that unfortunately, I thought that might be the end of my career. Like I had some post concussion symptoms for a while there, but kind of took it easy until the major indoor. It was even before the NLL. This was the last year of the major indoor lacrosse league, and went back and saw a neurologist, and they were able to clear me. But I always felt like at that point I was one concussion away from the end of my career.
Wow. And those symptoms, what were like? I mean, obviously, is like after a long period of time and taking rest and stuff, you were still kind of just getting headaches or blurred vision and stuff like that. It was just staying with you.
So fortunately, I haven't had like that many headaches. So like you get a headache right after the fact, but more just like feeling like you're hungover all the time. And so like your brain maybe it hurts a little bit. Not a I wouldn't call it a headache, but just more like it's hard to remember things. It's hard to just your brain doesn't work, and so it's kind of a miserable place to be.
Yeah.
Ultimately at the end of my career. Same thing. I got 2 concussions in a year, and that was it. And I tried to kind of come back and play like just in summer league, or would like bump my head, and basically dealt with that for probably about 2 years, where it was just kind of felt like you were like hungover all the time.
Yeah. And that's it. I've had buddies kind of go through the similar experience where it's just like you just want to get out of that, right, and find an answer to make it go away. But you mentioned that during that time you were playing in Boston. What was there a moment for you? We always ask guys this. Was there like a welcome to the NLL moment for you, or like something that happened, or something that you learned in a practice, or something like that sticks out early on?
Well, my very first shift, I mean, this was back in the old Boston Garden, and so back then we only played I think it was an 8 game schedule. So you had four games, 4 home games. And so, I didn't get to dress the first 4. So, 5th game of the season, I'm in, we're playing the Philadelphia Wings. I step on the floor and I'm covering Gary Gate. And so that was kind of a welcome to the professional lacrosse. I mean, just
Yeah.
that first day was just everything was just happening so fast. Dallas Elliott was the goalie for that team. I got real lucky. I kind of got in on him and just shot 5 hole, and he like pulled up his stick and it went in, which was obviously very fortuitous. But that was quite a memory for a first game.
Were
Well,
you playing?
I mean,
Were you playing offense at the time, or kind of both ways? Because I know you scored a lot of points in college, but what kind of role did you have there early on?
So I was an attackman in college, and then started playing some midi. Like I think the Blazers were one of the first teams to go like OD. They might have copied it from the Buffalo Bandits, but we were one of those earlier teams. So I was playing offense. I don't know how I ended up playing defense that very first shift there, but I was more of an offensive player and played offense. And then, I guess it was, probably halfway through my career, even in Baltimore or in Philly, where I started playing kind of two-way, kind of reverse tranny. I might have been one of the earlier reverse transition players who went going out the O door and getting back and playing D. And so that's kind of the last few years of my career. That's kind of what I played. And obviously it's fun to score goals, but it's fun to hit people too. So it's nice to be able to play both sides.
Well, and to kind of go back to your welcome to the league moment. I mean, it's kind of It's kind of a cool full circle story, right? That your first action watching Division One and kind of inspiring your creativity to play the game is watching the air gate happen in person, and then you get to kind of go up and line up against them. That's a fun story, man. And again, it's pretty cool. So, I mean, walk us through. So it was just those? Was it the 3 years in Boston, and then were you traded to Philly, or did you sign there? How did that work?
Yeah. So I played for 3 years in Boston, and then after that third year was the year that our Players Association forced the league to go to private ownership, and so we
Okay.
had an owner in Boston, and this was all going down right at the start of training camp, and so the owners of the Major Indoor Lacrosse League agreed to keep two teams and sell the rest, and so we're getting ready for the first weekend of training camp, and our Players Association was like, well, they've agreed to this, but we don't have a collective bargaining agreement, and so we can't show up to the first weekend of tryouts because we come this far, we can't do that. So we canceled the first weekend of tryouts in Boston, and the owner was, I believe, the owner of the Providence Bruins. He got cold feet, and he's like, I'm out. And so there was a disbursement draft. At the time I was coaching, a Division III school, Mount Ida College, which it was a gig but not a great one. And I got picked up by Baltimore, and it wasn't much of a deliberation. I'm like, I'm going to Baltimore. Like I knew one person that lived in Baltimore, and I packed up my car and drove down there. And so I show up there. Baltimore was the worst team in the league the year before. It was a team known for really good American field players, but not with a lot of box experience. So in the old Major Indoor Lacrosse League, you were limited unless you were like, Philadelphia and Buffalo, which were like kind of the premier teams. Like the teams that were remote only could have three Canadians. The league would only pay for three Canadians. So our three Canadians in Boston were Marty O'Neill, Rodney Tapp, and then the third one was the goal scorer that changed every year. We had Ted Dowling one year that came in and lit it up. We had Darren Fridge that came in and did a nice job. Todd Wolfong was another one. And so, the Baltimore team was the worst team in the league. So I show up, kind of happy to have a home, but it was kind of still that same, a lot of just field players that didn't know Bach. Well, a weekend of being down there, they signed Gary Gate from Philadelphia because he had been living in Baltimore. So Gary shows up. I was like, I got this buddy Chris Panos who was on the Blazers the year before. He's not doing anything. You can get him, and so they put together a team that we went to the Champions Cup that year. Obviously, having Gary Gate was a huge part of that, but they put together a real nice team, and we ended up playing Philadelphia in the first series that I'm aware of. It used to be a one game, and it was the best of three series that first year, and they swept us in two. But that was kind of my first year in Baltimore.
Okay, and then so how long was Baltimore around? How long were you there for?
Yeah, so I mean, Baltimore was a team that had been around in the old Major Indoor Lacrosse League. They
Yeah.
only lasted, probably the first 3 years of the NLL, and so I lasted 2 years there. I ended up asking to be traded to Philadelphia and was granted that wish. They ended up going to Pittsburgh and then to Washington before going out to Colorado.
Okay. Interesting. Got it. So there's our franchise tree there, how that works. But
Just by the way, for like maybe guys more my age or younger, like how good was Gary Gate and what made him so great at that time? Because I think like mid late '90s, early 2000s, kind of the peak of his powers as a pro. Like you obviously have a special connection to him, which you already explained. But like what made the guy so good at that time?
Well, I mean, he was 6'2", 6'3", 220 pounds. And so, like, that's a good place to start. But he just used his body so well. Like, he and Paul Gate just used their size so well. And were just so smooth with their stick that, it revolutionized the game in the way they played. I mean, I think they're more physical Dodgers, right? Like, they're kind of like, get ahead of steam and, see if you can stop me. So, it was hard to match up against them, just one guy. And so that was a part of it, their size. But, they knew the box game, and they were slippery and had great skills, and, could score with the best of them. And so it was kind of just like if you could build a prototypical uh, field or box player like that, that's where you'd start.
No doubt. So, I mean, after that trade to Philly, that's, from what we understand, that's kind of, in the peak of the championship runs. Once you get there, right, when they become a pretty solid team filling up that arena. Is that right?
Well, they were one of the premier teams from Major Indoor Lacrosse League, and so the league was owned by three guys.
Yeah.
Chris Fritz and Russ Klein were the two main guys, and although they had kind of restrictions on teams like Boston, like Philadelphia and Buffalo were their teams, and so they stacked the heck out of those two teams. They just needed some other teams to play those. But they would sell out both of those arenas on a nightly basis or close to it. And so when I got there, I mean, since and once they started the NLL, that really opened the door to kind of like teams, putting together other teams that could rival them. And so that was kind of the tail end of the dynasty of Philadelphia. I think they won it that first year, and then it wasn't until 2001 when I was there that they won it again. Toronto kind of went on a run there of a couple of years of winning.
What do you remember about winning it? That you said 2001.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that year?
Well, I mean, we always had great fans. Like they would go to visit us anywhere and really support us, and that's fun. I mean, even when I played against Philadelphia, I always loved going there. Whether people are cheering for you or screaming at you, it's just fun to be in that sort of environment. I mean, the 2001 team, we had a lot of characters on that team, and once again, like kind of just a handful of Canadians and just enough, but a lot of it was probably 2/3 of the team were American players. And so we had guys coming from Long Island. We had guys from Maryland, like myself, some guys from Philadelphia. And so it was really a lot of the top Americans were in that region were playing on the team. And, any championship team I've ever been on, or, it starts with camaraderie, and so guys, they loved hanging out with each other. We're buddies. We had a ton of fun, on the floor, but afterwards, but really, stuck together. And, Dave Stilley was our captain. He was an American and just somebody that you would run through a brick wall for. Dallas Elliott, to me, was a real difference maker. Obviously, he was, considerably the top goalie in the league, but he just did a lot to, I know for me, he would just kind of get in my head, even leading up to it, of just saying some things that were obviously he thought about, but just trying to break down the Toronto Rock a bit and kind of boost me up. And to me, he was obviously a big part of that. And, if you go back and watch that game, I mean, any great win that I've ever had, or a lot of them, are because other teams have kind of, underestimated the team. And I think that was the case there. Toronto had won 2 in a row. We hadn't even come close to beating them in years. And so we were kind of walking into kind of a perfect storm of them, being an all-star team and assuming they could just show up and beat us. And Tony Resch was our coach. If you know anything about Tony Resch, he wins no matter where he goes. He's just the ultimate coach, best coach I've ever had. And he just has a way of, putting together a game plan, but also instilling confidence, of everybody in that game plan. And, we went into that game. It's like one of those games where, sometimes you go into a big game that you're, maybe an underdog, but you just know you're going to win. It was one of those situations. And so we jumped on them early. We got out to a huge lead. Dallas Elliott was just standing on his head. They made a run at the end and got it to within 1. But that was quite a game. I mean, that was one of the most fans ever in a game at that point. I mean, at that point, that was one. When we played the Washington team with both Gate brothers in Philadelphia, that was another with 18,000. And so, what I remember from that year is just a lot of characters with personality. Once again, if I'm building a team like I did in Boston, I look for guys with personality. Obviously, Paul Dawson was a big part of that. But to me, like, you can't underestimate the quality of just having a personality and having guys that are just fun to be around.
I'm looking through the I'm looking through the team from that year and just names of guys that I obviously know, Tom Marichek, Finneran, Mark Millen, guys who most of our listeners would know. The late Chris Sanderson was the backup goalie, but we've had Jake Berge on the podcast, I think a long time ago at this point. What was I mean, he was a beauty when we interviewed him. What was he like? He was the leading scorer.
I mean, Jake was another one of those prototypical players. Like, obviously, he grew up playing field. His dad obviously was a legendary linebacker for the Eagles, but he was just a brick. He was just a strong, tough guy that would just run at you and split you up, and you don't have the strength to stop him. I mean, just a great personality. I mean, very welcoming. I mean, I consider him a really good friend. But he was just one of many guys that just were fun to be around. And to me, once again, like that's the cornerstone of a team. You don't necessarily, you know, ELE. It's great to love everybody, but to look forward to just spending time with people on the team is obviously a great place to start.
Yeah, it's awesome. I also just want to tie a bow on something you said just for our listeners. Tony Resch is now the defensive coordinator for the Archers, added 2 more titles to his ledger these last couple of years. So when it's all said and done, because he played on those Wings teams that won in the 90s. So we'll have to get him on sometime because that guy's got as many rings as the next guy. We don't have a ton of time left, so maybe let's talk about some of the coaching stuff. Did you when your career came to an end, sounds like concussions were probably a little bit of a part of that, if not a big part of it. Did you go right into coaching? You were already coaching college. What was that kind of transition like for you?
So ever since I graduated from Bowdoin, I've coached college lacrosse. And so when I was in Baltimore, the first groups that approached me, I started coaching girls high school, St. Paul's for girls. And then I was at Loyola University for 5 years, coaching the women's team there, Division I, and then was at Towson University for a year. And then I got back into coaching, professional box. But I've always been a coach, and I've had some other jobs on the side. But to me, like, that's what I'm best suited for. I mean, obviously, there's more important jobs than a lacrosse coach, but not for me.
And then just want to kind of hear your opinion on this, but a guy of your resume and pedigree presumably had the option to coach more men's lacrosse. I know you have coached men's lacrosse in there, obviously with the Blazers and stuff, but the decision to coach women's, what was that kind of like, and what have you kind of enjoyed about being on maybe the other side of the game?
Yeah, so I've been back here at St. Lawrence. It's my hometown, so that's obviously something that draw me back here. I've been an assistant primarily a men's, but also a women's coach for 11 years here. And so in the fall or this summer, the head women's coach left, and so I stepped in for the second time in 4 years to be like the interim coach, and just have been so intimately involved with recruiting the guys that it was really a tough decision to make, but. I kind of, the team really inspired me. They show up every day with a great attitude and work hard. And, I have a couple players on the team that I was involved with recruiting, and, friends with their parents. And I just couldn't let them, go to somebody that wasn't going to do them justice. And so, obviously I have some background in coaching, college women, not for a while, but after being an assistant for 11 years, I felt like it was time to step up and be a head coach.
That's awesome.
That's great. Is there we'll hit you with a few kind of rapid fires, but curiosity on this one, has there ever been any thought out of you to return to an NLL coaching gig?
Well, I really enjoyed it in Boston. I mean, that was a great experience for me. I mean, I ended up getting fired, and I think that really, it took a toll on me to a certain extent. I mean, I put together a quality team. I was basically fired because my relationship with the president there, at first it was good, and then egos got in the way, and it got to the point where it was either going to be him or me that had to go, and he was my boss, so he got to fire me instead of vice versa. So, I love that. I mean, the reality is, there's not a lot of job security at the professional level. A lot of the coaches that have other full-time jobs do it on the side. I think that can be a lot more of a nice like side gig. But for me, I appreciate being in a place where my philosophies fit with the schools, and ultimately, I feel very secure that if I want to stay here for another 10 or 15 years, that's likely to be a scenario.
So just to backtrack, because we do have a few minutes, I might have kind of jumped the gun there, but how did the Boston coaching gig come up? And then Paulie told me to ask something after that. So, but how did you become the coach of the Blazers?
So at the time, I was the head coach of the U.S. indoor team, and so obviously that was part of it. I mean, the owner Tim Armstrong is a guy that I knew. So after Bowdoin, I went to Connecticut College to get a master's in psychology, and was the assistant coach there. He graduated from Connecticut College a year before, so we played against each other and had a little bit of interaction. So he went on to be one of the original top guys at Google, and went on to run Yahoo, but basically bought the team and thought of me first, and so that was kind of very fortuitous that had the connections with him, and at the time was just finished coaching the I think 2006 World Championships in Halifax, was the head coach of the U.S. team. So that's kind of how I got into that.
Okay, Paulie asked me to ask about the beer games in Boston at the office.
Yeah, so I think it was the first year. So I mean, I give Tim Armstrong and his brother a ton of credit. Like they really did. They set us up in a nice spot. So we had office space that was right across the street from the Garden. We shared it with Tim's brother. Had a kind of a financial business going in half of it, and so it was probably one of our first weekends of training camp in Boston, and so I had made arrangements to have a team building activity in the offices, and so we had different games set up. I mean, definitely quarters was one of them. There was maybe flip cup, a couple other ones, but I was not in the area that was playing quarters, and we had a real nice, expensive boardroom table that we were playing quarters on. So when I go in at the end of the night and see there's like nicks in this really fine like wood, I was like, oh shoot. So that didn't go over well, obviously. But as I said, like a big part of my philosophy is team building activities and camaraderie amongst team members. And so, I mean, it was a great night. People had a blast. We played some games, had some fun, and got closer as a team. And fortunately, Tim's brother Don was fairly forgiving about having to redo the tabletop.
That's so good. But
Tell you that a lot of things change in the NLL. Team building exercise doesn't change. It pretty much means the same thing now that it has for 25 years.
It's funny. It's one of those things that's like, team building is something that can lead to wins and lead to a team coming together. But also, if a team is losing, it's always the answer to go out and do some team building to try to like hash everything out. If there's things you got to get off your chest, or you want to get closer and really run through a wall for someone, then you got to get to know them, and you got to spend time together. And usually those hours are later in the evening. And that's when I'm a firm believer of that too, is like the best teams come together early, and then the other, the teams that win the most come together when it matters the most. So it's definitely an important part of the game, especially when you've got other things going on in your life, right? And it is a part-time league. You've got to really use the time you've got together, because it is it can be a little bit of an escape from your everyday life to come together. But we usually close things out with kind of asking guys more so we'd like to kind of have these consistent questions that we ask everyone, and then you can kind of, get some cool stories out of it. So, throughout your career, whether, college and into, the NLL, what number did you wear and what was the reason behind it?
When I got to Bowdoin, I was assigned 17, and I would say I'm kind of probably at the lower end of the superstitious spectrum, but just you get a number and it grows on you, and you develop an affinity toward it. And so 17 was my number. I wore that in Boston. I mean, when I got to Baltimore, they had already started training camp for the year. It was a little bit of a towards the end of the training camp, and so 17 wasn't available. I had to wear 10 for 2 years, and that didn't work out so great. But I got back to 17 in Philadelphia, and obviously that's my lucky number now.
Great. And I mean, you already told us a funny, equipment story about playing with a 40-year-old who wasn't wearing a helmet. But is there anything equipment wise that, outside of kind of having to doctor your helmet up to fit the dreadlocks in, was there any really old piece of equipment that you wore your whole career, or anything, again, you said you weren't very superstitious, but anything that you felt you had to wear every game?
No, but I don't know what the rules are now for sticks. I mean, back when we started there, I mean, the rule was that if you turn the stick upside down, the ball had to come out. And so I'd go to Home Depot and get like the thick insulation and do a double strip in the as a ball stop, and so that the ball would only go in at the very top and out, because there was 2 layers of like the thick insulation from Home Depot.
That's
That's the best answer we've had yet to that question.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I remember seeing Dan Dawson's stick back in the day. He used to have a similar piece on it. But and then this one's brought to you by a sponsor of ours, Kilo, which is actually the official hydration drink of the NLL as well. But Donnie came up with this question. It's been an awesome one to ask, guys. But looking back at your career, everything that happened, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Well, I don't really believe in regrets. I have a few, but not too many. Not too many in lacrosse. You talk about full circle, and when I first started out, playing in Boston, I'd go to Rochester, and they would literally play, get a haircut, get a real job, and whistle at me when I touched the ball. And when I got to Philly, they'd play "Dude Looks Like a Lady." And I'd say the first year probably distracted me a little bit, and then, as I said, whether people are screaming at you or screaming for you, it's just energy, and you can kind of use that to your advantage. And so that's really where the nickname "Dude" came from. When I got to Philly, it was just short for "Dude Looks Like a Lady." But to be welcomed into Philadelphia by the fans, I mean, I feel very fortunate to have spent my last few years there.
That's great. That's awesome, man. Well,
maybe put a mat down on the table next time you play beer games.
Yeah.
Talking regrets.
The table from the quarters.
Yeah, go buy a 20-cent tablecloth before.
Well, I'm one of those guys that learns the hard way, and I learned not to play drinking games on the company table. Sure.
Awesome. Well,
all you kids out there.
Yeah, there's our lesson for the day. But to be fair, putting down a table does kind of, affect the ability to bounce the quarter. So,
right.
But again, man, we appreciate you taking the time. It's an awesome story. It's one that's taken quite a few different turns, and but you should be proud of the career you had, and obviously, transitioning right into coaching as an American that kind of, found the game after school. Again, that's a pretty cool story. And obviously, being able to coach your hometown now is pretty special too. So we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. Good luck to the St. Lawrence ladies this year. Hopefully we kind of keep things rolling now, but again, thank you for taking the time, man.
Of course. Good talking to you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right. That was Tommy Ryan again. We could have gone on for an hour. The dude, awesome guy. So many different stories and such details remembered. So we're gonna have to get back on and talk a little bit more about building the team in Boston. I think that would be a pretty unique thing to dive into. But I did love that the first thing you wanted to do was just iron out the team building, get the boys playing quarters on a really expensive table.
Yeah.
yeah, a fun story there. But
A couple of different ones too. I keep cutting you off. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. Do it. I talk too
Uh,
much.
him being there for the air gate, the first one, was pretty cool. Like I kind of almost got chills when he said that. That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
And I think for I think one of our goals of this podcast is to really help people understand the game and the people and stuff. For him to say that like, being there changed his life, it's not hyperbole, and it really did, and it kind of shows how much the game means to him. And I just thought that was really cool. And one of the things I hope to do with lacrosse culture, I hope I have time to do it in the future, is to tell like kind of the great moments or the great games. Like we've talked to a lot of guys, for example, about those last few games at Maple Leaf Garden, that Rochester Toronto game. There's several classic games. There's like a 2009 Man Cup. There's plenty of stuff, but that was really like a seminal moment in lacrosse, really, when the Gates did the air gate, and to think that he was there was pretty neat and a pretty cool story. So yeah.
And then it going full circle to like his first welcome to the NLL moment being like lining up across the floor from Gary Gate too is I don't know, it's one of those things that just kind of all happens for a reason. And then it's like, again, it pushed his like the creativity on that play, like kind of pushed him to be a more creative person in his whole life, which is kind of an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, it was a lot of fun chatting ball, and I love doing these old time interviews because they're just it's such a different time in lacrosse. I mean, the guy told a story about his like playing the first summer, and his some guys running around without a helmet
Yeah.
on, fighting people, and his stepson gets in a fight in the box with the guy that he just wanted to get in a fight in. And it's like all that stuff is just it's awesome. There's so many stories like that need to be told. Outside of that, Donnie, anything else going on that you want to touch on lacrosse wise?
Trying to think. I don't think so. Lots of good stuff coming out on lacrosse culture. Evan Schemenauer does a great job of recapping all the playoff scenarios. I think if you're a fan of the league, you should definitely check that article out. It's incredible how going into last weekend, there was, statistically speaking, 67 million possibilities left. So,
That's insane.
yeah, which is insane. I don't really understand how that's even true, but
Exponential growth.
yeah,
That's
I think
how.
it's 21 to the power. I think there's 21 games left, and it's 21 to the power of 21. But I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, because I'm pretty sure that's how the NCAA tournament works. Is 64 to the power of 64 for the first round. Or maybe it must be 32 because there's 32 games. Anyways, this is not why people tune in to the Back of the Bird.
No.
So I'll shut my trap there. Wait, actually, let's end on a good note. So you're talking about Shoresy. Have you seen Canisius and their post-game tradition?
No.
They're giving out game sticks.
Like drumsticks?
Oh yeah. And the player of the game gets the first stick, and then they have drumsticks for the whole team. And if you know me, I fucking love ice cream. If there's one thing about John Donville, first page loves lacrosse, second page he fucking loves ice cream. So I completely get behind that. And
like halfway down the second page, loves Jersey Mike's.
Yes. Yeah, there's like maybe there's like a chart on the second page of things. It's like, family,
it's like
my buddies.
It's your Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and ice cream is like just below family.
Right. Ice cream's higher on there than it is for the average person. So I completely support. And it's Coach Mark Miyashita, Canisius head coach, who is Canadian, and I think watches Shoresy, so that's where it comes from. But if you're looking for a college team to get behind, the Griffs giving out some ice cream after every game.
Yep, I like that. Speaking of college teams, shout out to our High Point men's and women's basketball team making the tournament for the first time. Didn't go that well. I hadn't been able to talk about it before, but a lot of exposure for the school, and they're getting on part of the You lost $1. I lost several hundred of the dollars on that game. But that's okay. It gave me a lot of. I think I actually lost other people like thousands of dollars. But it's one of those things that's just fun to ride it out. But yeah, again, go watch some lacrosse. It's going to get pretty heated. All the teams are, you got the best players heating up at the right time, kind of carrying their teams through. You got teams that maybe were struggling at the beginning, kind of flipped it around, and yeah, it's all right
You
in
got
front
me
of you.
playing penalty kill.
You got Donnie holding down the anchor. Are you kidding me? Blocking shots, doing everything he can. Both two members of this podcast are holding down the anchor on the penalty kill. So, not something I thought I'd ever say, but that's pretty impressive stuff. So you throw in there that somehow I had 6 cause turnovers in a single game, and we hadn't talked about that yet.
That might have to be a whole episode.
It will be, because I think what we'll have to do is we might have to do a live stream of watching the whole game, and it's going to turn out I have 0 in the game, and somehow they wrote the turnovers column 1 over. But as it stands now in the history books, I'm the only offensive player in league history to have 6 or more in a game. So I don't think that's true, but we're
and only what, like 7 or 8 D guys have ever done it. Like it's an unbelievable statistic.
Yeah, I think I think it might have been a lot more than that, like 29 or something. But
okay.
Yeah, now it's kind of one of those things. Hi, I'm Dan Lomas. Nice to meet you. I'm the only offensive player. It's a mouthful. I'm gonna have to find a way to shorten it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to find a way to shorten it. So, but yeah, we appreciate you guys listening. We appreciate your patience with us too. It's been a little bit of a hectic time for us. With some family stuff going on and then kind of work stuff too. But we're going to try to be consistent for the home stretch here, give you as much as we can. And little teaser, we might have a fun one next week. I'm already getting ahead of next week planning. So, which is, I know usually when we talk like this, they cancel on us. So I'm not going to tell you guys, but let's just say we've brought up his name a lot. So
a white whale, perhaps.
A white whale. So we're working on that one. But again, we appreciate you guys listening. Shout out to Cottage Springs, PO Athletic, Kilo, as well as Lucky Penny Media. We appreciate all you guys for jumping on board and riding this with us. We'll chat with you next week.
Peace.